right, guys, Rational Gig Driver here, coming to you with a special video today. I wanted to do a little drive video here. I know I've been doing a lot of lives. Get this straightened up here. Doing a lot of lives here recently, but I want to do a video, just a reflection piece here to tell you what I learned about accepting every order on the DoorDASH platform for 3.5 weeks. And I got my acceptance rate up. My highest point was 97%. I used a combination, a majority of which I used earn by time, and then I used some earn by offer as well, sporadically. And I want to tell you what I have learned. I really believe, with these apps, because there isn't a manual, there really isn't a way even for DoorDASH itself to tell you what it's going to do, because they really don't know. So I would encourage you to, be willing to try on air stuff, be willing to give something a try, come up with an idea and put it forth. Because even if you see it on YouTube on another channel, it might work really well. It might not work well. And, you just never know what your market's going to prevail, because your market's going to be different. You're going to have a different tips, different payouts, different economic status. What I learned in my market is, I don't believe it gets better for accepting every order. The DoorDash algorithm, I believe, starts to get smart to the fact that you're accepting every order, and it essentially, it doesn't necessarily send you good orders. It just keeps you working. It keeps you busy. That is one nice thing, but it doesn't necessarily keep you busy on profitable orders. I drove more miles than I've ever driven. I made less an hour than I've ever made. Now, earn by time, the interesting part is when I was doing earn by time, it was actually stressless. It was, surprisingly enough, you'd think, well, how would that be stressless? Well, because I was earning by time. So it was like I had made a commitment to work at the amount in the earn by time app, which was, $13.25 an hour in my area. I worked in an area with $17. I've worked in an area where it's $15. But I basically made that commitment. So I knew I was making that while I was waiting at a customer's house. So I was more willing. I really didn't drop any orders. I didn't really use the complimentary cancel. And one of the reasons why is because if I'm already waiting at the store for 15 minutes and I give up that time, there's a chance DoorDash will resend that order to me. They might send it to me in a stack. They might just pop it over to me again. And if they do that, I lose all that time. So DoorDash has ways to punish you. And on earn by time, if they did that, here the order might be ready now, and now I've lost all of that time. I've lost that 15 minutes I waited. And since I'm being paid for it, why not take it and gamble for the tip? And that's kind of what I felt like I was doing the entirety of earn by time. And it was very similar to hidden tip orders, where I didn't know what I was getting. And there was not one order I knew where I was getting. So it was like every time I'm hitting that button, I'm getting that same feeling like, oh, it's excitement. Oh, dude, did I get a tip? And sometimes I scored and I got $10 or $12 in tip, and I got an $8 or $9 base pay. And then there were sometimes I got an $8 or $9 base pay and no tip. And there were times I got a $4 base pay and no tip. And those were disappointing. But I found myself every single time, the more I did earn by time, the more I became I started to enjoy the idea that it was like every order there was a surprise at the end of it. So it kept me engaged more. Whereas when I'm doing regular earn by offer orders, whether it's on Uber, whether it's on Spark, whether it's on DoorDash itself, and there isn't a plus sign and there isn't a sign, and I'm like, all right, I know what I earned. I earned $7. I earned $12. I earned $13. So for me, it was just, what's the next order going to be? When will I get an order? So it was like, there wasn't that constant engagement. There wasn't that edge of my seat. Wow, what's the payout going to be? So, I think, again, but it didn't translate to more money for me, right? I felt better about my day. I felt more engaged. I felt, even though I was making a lot less, in my opinion, there was one day I worked less than 8 hours and made $200. The rest of the time I had to work at least 10, if not 12 hours to pop out $200. That's a lot of time. It's a lot of time. And now that was just using DoorDash. That wasn't using any other, when I did this experiment, I didn't use other apps. So my takeaway on it is this. If you only have access to DoorDash and you need to make $300 in a day, can you do it? Yes. Will you do it every day? No, but you could do it. I mean, I just saw Nug's video where he did 106 hours and he made $2,000. And that's a lot of money, but it was 106 hours. Is that feasible every week? Absolutely not. He was exhausted. By the end of the experiment, I was definitely feeling fatigued. I was definitely feeling tired. I was definitely feeling like this isn't sustainable for me to be coming out working 12 to 15 hours a day just to make $200. I was needing those days off much more than, say, this week, where I'm on trajectory to make about the same amount. I was making only about $700 to $800 a week, working 50 hours a week in my market, because my market apparently is, what I learned about it is apparently it's not a very good tipping market. And I kind of felt that way. I've always had to use other apps, and I wasn't sure if it was just, hey, I'm using these other apps and they're pulling me off DoorDash, and maybe while I'm off working Spark and Uber Eats or Grubhub or Instacart, man, all the good orders are coming through. No, I don't think that's the case, because I stayed on for 3.5 weeks. And I think it's just a market that's got a lot of driving and it doesn't have very good tips. And that's, some markets I think are like that. It's not that they don't tip, it's just the tips aren't very high, and the tips aren't commensurate with the amount of driving needed. And it's probably because, again, this is an area that is not a very wealthy area. Our average median income in this area right now is, like, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I looked it up, it was $31,000. It's the median income. So it's a very, that you're not going to get a lot out of that, and that's in a time when I think the national median income, I believe, is like, I think $65,000. So we're way below it. And of course, it may have risen a little bit because incomes have risen now and inflation's kicked in and it's hit pay a little bit. But this area, the income in this area is a lot lower, mainly because, like I said, we're close to DC. There are people that drive out to DC. There are people that use this as a bedroom community, and then the people that are here during the day, that are here when I'm trying to do full-time DoorDash, that are working in the local businesses where I'm getting my tips out of, where I'm providing them lunch, they can't afford it. Or they can afford $3, but they're not going to be able to afford 20% and still use the DoorDash platform. So, you got to figure it out. Where does it come in at? Now, Spark does well because Walmart pays out a lot of base pay in this area. And there are some that tip well and like the service of having their groceries. And the thing I've noticed is it's a lot of the people that are working out of the area that are commuting, because this is a commuting area. It works well with Spark. It works well with Instacart. People like that. They like to have their groceries delivered and waiting for them or brought to them at 6:30. They're coming home. I can't tell you how many people I've met in the driveway as they're pulling in from work on a weeknight, and I'm delivering their groceries, and they're walking in the house telling me thank you, and I'm delivering them and dropping them off, and they're tipping me $25 for that. Like yesterday, I had nearly 40 some dollar tip on one order. I'm waiting to see if it comes through today, but that was from, I'm sure, judging from the neighborhood, the individual. This was an individual who's, I'm sure, leaving the area to make their money, and they're coming back in, and that's kind of what he indicated to me when we were talking yesterday, and he was right there to help me out. But I think food delivery, it's just not enough time. I can go for dinner, which dinner in my area starts about 6:30, because that's when people get into town. It goes about 6:30 to about 9. So it's about 2.5 hours. And can I make $30 an hour during those 2.5 hours? Absolutely. But is $75 enough? No. So I have to figure out how I make the remaining $125 for the rest of the day. That's the trick. That's the problem. That's the issue I have in my market. because before 6:30, it's very difficult to make money. And you're going to make probably 10 to 13 to $14 an hour all the way up until about 6:30 doing DoorDash, because there just isn't enough work to support it. And as this market has become saturated and overrun with drivers, it becomes harder and harder and harder to collect that money and make that money. So, for me, it was eye-opening. But I wanted to share my reflections and my thoughts. I would encourage you to consider doing something similar in your market. Test it out, see what's there. I know I need to multi-app if I'm going to work this area. There's not to say I can't go to other markets around me and just work DoorDash. I probably could, and I could probably make good money if I wanted to go drive 30, 40, 50 minutes down the road. Perhaps I might one day if I need to, but because I have Spark, Instacart, Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash, and I can sit here and in 6 to 8 hours make $200 on a consistent basis, I'm going to keep doing that until I can't. Anyways, so that's where I'll leave it, guys. Follow me, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be doing lives. I'm going to be bringing it to you live. I'm going to be taking you along with me. I'm going to show you my experience live and continue to do that on a daily basis every time I'm out, as much as I can. And then, of course, tune in for the Rational Gig Driver, Rational Gig Hour specials that are going to be going on weekly, where we sit down and talk gig work for an hour and get rational about gig work. Talk about numbers, talk about things, talk about DoorDash, talk about Spark, talk about everything that's going on. So it'd be a good place to come in and just talk strategies, talk things, talk what's going on in markets, learn about each other's experiences. Anyways, guys, if you like that, hit the subscribe button. I'll talk to you soon. Till then, stay rational.